you have a smartphone or you want to check this out online at home, all the materials that we are working on getting access to right now are online, but will be very soon if not all of them are there. I also want to let folks know that if you are uncomfortable wearing masks and there is a way to attend the meeting, not by being in the room, but by calling in. So either using video or by calling into the phone number. UW Richland campus does have a policy of requiring masks, and then of course there have been various orders in the news lately. I just want to let everyone know about that other option if that's not feasible, because some people do have health challenges that make it difficult. Please everyone make sure your cell phones are set to silent, even for notifications of little text messages or Facebook. Make sure everything's to silent. And then a reminder to our community members, if you have a report, if you want to ask questions, keep asking questions. Don't check in with me if you're not finished, but then before that meeting. But also be mindful of community members that we have a long 28-point agenda today. So please keep things as brief as possible. Raise your hand on this bigger statement tonight, so I can see if you wish. And then members of the public or county staff members, we ask you to come up to this microphone here to speak, so that the public, this is your public, will want to make sure that the public can hear what we're saying. With that, one other housekeeping item. Ms. Goldman explained to me before the meeting started that we have these microphones. And so if you wish to speak, make sure to push the button in front of you so that it's green. And then when you're done speaking, you won't be able to hear as well. We won't be picking up all of your feedback if you have more. The process was there proper proof of notification for this meeting? And were you able to post at the county board the location for this meeting? Okay, thank you, Ms. for posting that. Agenda item number 3, agenda approval. We have a 28-point agenda. I entertain a motion. I'm sorry. I have to go back here. Clerk, can you please take the roll? Here. Is also up online. Okay, so no, also up after the day for not be attending. Okay, so we do have a forum to conduct the meeting. So agenda item number 3, agenda approval. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Supervisor Cooley. Second by Supervisor Dennis. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have an agenda adopted. Agenda item number 4, July 7th minutes approval. Entertain a motion to approve those minutes. And a motion by Supervisor Cooley. Second by Supervisor Brewer. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, so the time is 1:14. I'm going to go ahead and move to agenda item number 6, which is Richland Center tax deed parcel number 276-2100-1682 sale. Ms. Keller, would you please come to the microphone, or I guess you have a microphone on. So if you could just make sure it's on and it's close to your face, I'd like to get it over. So I entertain a motion to approve the sale of tax deed property in the city of Richland. I'll move the motion by Supervisor Crew. Second by Supervisor Crew. All those in favor, signify by vote. Any further discussion? Mr. Dower? Ms. Keller, please. What's the name of the buyer for this property? Okay, those are the poll. Any votes? Are you further discussion? All those in favor of approving the sale of this tax deed property, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item number 5 now. Tax deed sale to the town of Bloom parcel number 004-0526-270. Okay, so I entertain a motion to hold a tax deed sale of this property in the town of Bloom. Motion by Supervisor C. Second by Supervisor Brewer. All those in favor of holding this tax deed sale, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so with that, we can now open it up to members of the public. So if anyone would like to place a minimum bid of $500, I'm going to have you raise your hand, and if there are further bids that we will go on from there. So yes, I see a bid in the back right there for $500. They're bidding for $600. They're bid to the left here. I'm going to move up to $800. Is that bid? Guys, they're bid for $800. They're bid for $1,000. Guys, in the back, they're bid for $1,000. How about $1,200? Bid right here. $1,300. That's back here. $1,400. Here, $1,500. $1,600. Okay, bid for $1,500 here. I say bid for $1,600 right here behind Mr. Southway. They're all over around. They're bid for $17. Here for $17. $18. That's $19. Over here, $2,000. Here, $2,100. There, $2,200. There, $23. $300 right here, $2,400. $400 there, $500. Right there, $26. $7. Here, $28. There, $29. There, $3,000. There, $3,400. Here, $32. Here, $3,300. There, $3,400. Here, $500. Here's a maybe you get it counted. I'm going to start skipping up to 2 at a time. $3,700. There, $3,900. One for $3,900. Right here, $4,100. Right here, $4,300. One for $4,300. And I got a bid right now for $4,100. I'm going back down to $4,200. $4,200. Right here, $43. $44. There, $45. $6. $600 right here. $4,700. $4,700 right there. $4,800. One for 48, 48, 49. $5,000. One for $5,000. year. 100. One for 5,100. And second class for 5,100. 51, 52. 53. One for 5,300. 400. 500. One for 5,500. 500. 600. 700. One for 5,700. 5,700. All right. I'm going to go to sell it then. After the sale for 50. And that has three times. We went for 5,700. Last time. Okay, then the highest bidder is 5,600. So Mrs. Balls. So with that, I would entertain a motion from the committee to sell the property in West Lima for $5,600. Is that right? To the Wallace. Well, I entertain that motion. Okay, motion by Supervisor Andrews. Second by Supervisor Cooley. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. So congratulations to the Wallaces. Please meet the treasurer calendar to discuss how to actually make this happen. People are rising. Thank you, everyone who came today and participated on the conference. Okay, so now we'll move on. We have one out-of-town guest today. On our agenda. Agenda item number 24. The community services building Simon's Auditorium and campus suites for their project. Russ Holmes, special today, is going to present to us today. Russ, can you come up to this microphone and just make sure that it's close enough that you can present your recommendation. And folks, this item, there are two items on your iPad regarding this. And someone can take a phone.
Good afternoon. Okay. Best provide recommendation for placing the post. Community service building, Diamond Recreation Center, Lower, Belleville, East, and Science Hall. Bring in $800,000. Recommend that we do community service building, sign the basement, and take water for building as alternates. If you can choose. Presently, bid price plus minus 25%. Time that we're in, yeah, interesting. Several alternates indicate what the best available. I would think we look at presenting that bids October 3rd. And the recommendation is September. So the question we will go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. And just to remind folks on the page, we have $634,000 set aside that fund previously authorized staff to pay services of Mr. Rollins to come up with estimates that he could go out is today to request that we go out this way so that we can save in our budget dollars. I think it's also any questions? Yes, make sure you have your microphone on. So Mr. Supervisor, Mr. Mullins is only suggesting that, because the bid is still coming in up to $800,000 or roughly that, that we have a base bid for the two buildings we know are, the community services building and science. And for these other buildings, we know there are some issues as well, but there's not further work done with staff. So what he's doing here is laying them all out as multiple bids.
Correct. I think the four things that we have in all alternates, which could be selected in any order, and based with
If something is that
Yes, that's how it works. We must figure out how to shift other projects. But Mr. Mullins, can you tell us what the estimate is to base bid projects would cost?
community service code is estimated at 300,000. Silent recreation is estimated at 225,000. Two of those total would be 525,000, which is well below the number to meet. And then the state presently we're seeing number 25% below what was every time contractors hear of more money being cut out of budgets, their numbers are dropping, material supply numbers are dropping. Get it out this fall, and we're looking at a bidding climate next spring, not a lot of work. We can see the rest of it. Body full of more of other alternate bids again.
Other questions, Supervisors? Any other committee members? Okay, so with that, I entertain a motion to go ahead and authorize Mr. Mullins to issue the advertised bids. Motion by Supervisor Cruz,
No, second, and
second by Supervisor Brewer. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Mullins. Okay, so agenda item number 7, signs, natatorium, rubber flooring, sale fees, transfer request. Administrator Wonder? Here. This is request for funds. Sale report.
the reason we have a treasure over is all sales.
No.
I'd like to make floor that this is replacing this vehicle with foundation. So this is no money.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so motion by Supervisor Davis. Second by Supervisor Rudy. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Item number 8, 2020 capital projects fund transfer to highway fund for asphalt purpose. Chair, item number 8.
Access to the place. It's highway lines, so, more than 800,000 acre highway
Okay, so any questions or comments from the committee members? Okay, so awesome. The question was, I'm not sure if you heard that. So Johnny, what is, anyone else needs to speak, just make sure you come up. Go ahead.
I think it would be better for
Okay, so Mr. Leonard,
yeah, the motion for at least $800,000.
on 75 to the highway.
Correct.
Okay, Supervisors.
Thank you.
Mr. Steve, make sure that you microphone.
yeah, so we get out of the back every year. Guarantee paid on. Well, hard to increase it.
And secondly, Chairman of the rules.
Yes, it is 175, so 175 is the bar that we'll get to authorize earlier this year. About $3 million. This would have raised capital projects. Those are all.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
further clarification, GTA means general transportation.
Hold on, how much we got.
So all those in favor of the motion, I'm sorry, I did the motion to do the fund transfer.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion.
Second by Supervisor Steve. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Mr. Speaker, item number 9, anti-bias approval. Mr. Mayor.
comes in and says they need to stop it, he would take, the number of, like, per office, and then those offices can go on a bill.
Mr. Chairman, I continue.
We're trying to adopt the budgets on numbers by multiple funds. Different departments.
Okay, so I can entertain a motion to go forward with this. Motion by Supervisor Cooley. Yes, second by Supervisor Brewer. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 10, audio system purchase.
Mr. Chair, looking for action today to approve purchase of audio equipment for broadcast and county meetings. Background is due to the county presented COVID-19 social distancing and keeping in line with public meetings laws. We need to purchase equipment to broadcast public meetings, this will allow us to broadcast as well as have in-person meetings as we are doing today. The breakdown of the costs are there. We're looking for GoAudioStar.com applications. $4 for the car center, $717.48. Amazon $1,554.83. For a total today of $2,906.31. Some of that equipment includes sound box, cablings, digital microphones. It allows us to host meetings like we are today. Right now, we're still using the soundboard from the UW system. This allows us to have our own soundboard and additional microphone capabilities. And I say that correctly. For those of you that do have access, the breakdown of the costs are.
Yes, sir, my recommendation is where the motion is going to come. It's noted at the bottom of the presentation.
We pay for through MIS, hoping to get reimbursement. Here's and drugs recovery reimbursements, which is money that came back to the state, that we can claim expenses up until November. All of those.
Okay, Supervisor.
Chairman, I move for adoption.
Motion by Supervisor Seep, second by Supervisor Cooley. All those, any further discussion? Yes, Supervisor Jenkins.
Number 10 is not on my thing here. How much is the total?
Mr. Chair, total is $2,906.31.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 11, Pine Valley truck purchase. Administrator Langren.
Mr. Chair, recommendation today is a motion to present a resolution to the county board for approval for Pine Valley to purchase a new 3/4 ton 2002 Chevrolet Silverado truck from Jones Chevrolet of Richland Center for $31,000 and authorize land conservation to keep the 2010 3/4 ton Ford pickup PV currently shares with them year-round. A background is they cross-load a truck right now for 6 months, I believe, and we do have the administrator Tom Rislow here to further expound on this topic as requested.
Okay, so committee members, do you have any questions or comments on the truck purchase? Supervisor Cooey.
I'd just like to thank Tom for buying that truck. So
Okay, anyone else? Supervisor C?
Mentioned that it's a 2002.
Mr. C, I believe that was just an error in how he read it. It reads a 2020.
Yes, I apologize. 2020. And to further clarify, the funding source will be coming from PD account, their 10040 account, as was forecasted and budgeted for in 2020.
Along with Mr. Cooley, I feel better.
Okay, Supervisor Brewer or Supervisor Gentis, any questions or comments? Okay, so I'd entertain a motion
Motion by Supervisor Cooey, second by Supervisor Gentis. All those in favor of moving forward with the purchase signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Mr. Rizlo. Agenda item number 12, Clerk of Court Office Position Transfer to Probate Office. Clerk of Court Leister, it sounds like maybe it will be presented by Ms. Lau.
Thank you, everyone. Have all of you received the information regarding this agenda item? I have some copies with me.
Supervisor Gentis, do you need a copy? Okay. Supervisor Gentis is good. Anyone else need a copy? We do have a few other supervisors in attendance today, so if any of you three would like anything, just let me know or raise your hand. See all of you guys back there. Okay, Ms. Lau.
So presently, the Register and Probate Office is a one-person office. I'm in there by myself. And up to this point, the last 2 years, since 2018, when I am gone on vacation or out of the office for whatever reason, in a meeting or sick, then Stacy Price, the courts, has been my backup. And Stacy, up to this point, has had 3 deputy clerks. And so either herself or someone from her office would do the best they could to back me up. And what we are asking is to have the deputy clerk position basically take a position in my office so that they could learn the probate matters, the juvenile clerk matters, the judicial assistant matters a little more closely and become an expert in those areas. That person would still be a circuit court deputy clerk, so they could also go to court and help with things that need to be taken care of in Stacy's office. So we, as the Register and Probate and the Clerk of Courts, are under the circuit court umbrella. We work closely together in many areas, and this person would help both offices, but they would primarily be working in my office. And so as far as the budget right now, that person's salary is in Stacy's budget. We're asking that the position be transferred to the Register and Probate, and it also be transferred to the Register and Probate budget. So at this point, I would entertain any questions that you may have. I can go into a little bit more detail.
Can you just please mention the process you went through with Carlson Detman? I see that's mentioned here. Can you just let folks know in case they didn't read that?
Sure. So Carlson and Detman did a wage study a few years ago, and when we proposed this agenda item, we did go to them and ask them to compare the wage structure, and that they determined that the wage structure would remain the same, which is at wage structure G, and so the pay would be the same regardless of what office they would be working out of.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lau. Committee members, Supervisor Seat.
Mr. Chair, I'm interested, apparently this was reviewed by law enforcement committee.
Correct. This was proposed initially to the Law Enforcement Judicial Committee, and they did do the same thing. They had an agenda item, and it was passed on to this committee with their recommendation.
Well, fully unanimously supported, I presume.
That is correct. Also, I don't know if you were able to see it, there is a recommendation by Judge Sharp, who is recommending this move. And he would also like to be a part of the interview process, since this position would also include being an assistant to him as a judicial assistant. So he would be doing, partaking in his scheduling and things that he needs to be taking care of it, as well as the circuit court.
Mr. Chair. Supervisor Seat, are you finished?
I just wanted to say thank you to Ms. Lau for her fine presentation.
Okay, Supervisor Brewer.
My question would be then, this is a budgeted
and plan for a position that ordinarily Stacy would be filling, but now it's gonna go over to you. Is that correct? Am I right?
It would change budgets. Stacy would also like to be a part of the interview process. We will still continue to work together. So the way I envision it is that it would be myself, Stacy Feist, Judge Sharp, and possible committee members that want to be involved in the interview process. And that way we would all be working together.
Then we're not adding anybody beyond what we've already budgeted.
Actually, there would be, the financial impact on Richland County would be less. Currently, the circuit court or the clerk of court's office is at 40 hours, and my office is currently at 35. So we would be actually reducing the financial impact to Richland County by bringing this down to 35 hours at this time.
Thank you.
Supervisor Cooey.
So we currently have this position in Stacy's office. We're just moving it to your office,
That is correct.
but nobody's in the position currently.
That is correct. The position at this time is vacant.
All I need. Thank you. Clerk Wassick?
This would be an elimination of a position in the clerk of court, the addition of a position to probate. You have people or numbers we count. Correct?
Yeah, so I would like Stacy to answer that question.
Ms. Price.
Thank you. Yeah, on April 10th, marked the end of the deputy clerk position in my office. At that point, I made the decision not to fill the position at that time and approached Jen. We worked together close. Everything that she stated was, I think, Jen's very, she's very helpful. You know, she works her tail off, and as the agency that works with her, both of our offices within the circuit court, I know how difficult it is for her to run that as a one-person office and to provide the best service that she can to the court. So looking at the fact that we had an open position, I thought maybe it was time for us to have a discussion about that this could be an opportunity for that position, if transferred over to her budget, being it separate, to knowing that the two offices work together, even though they're different case types, things are they're similar, that it would still be great customer service for the courts as long as we maintained a total of 5 people between the two offices. And by transferring the position over to her, it gives her everything that she doesn't have now. The assistance while the customers, while she's with another customer, while she's in court, she's at this meeting, whatever. She's the only department that's operating as a one-person office, and of course that has a lot of deficits.
Ms. Price, I just want to ask, so is it true what?
The elimination thing, this is why I'm like, the elimination thing makes me extremely nervous, because elimination only if to allow this position to be transferred into her department. Up until just a couple years ago, there were 5.5 people in the circuit court. Up until April 10th, there were 5. Now there are 4. We're trying to maintain and get back to 5. And if I'm not saying any of you folks would do this, but this ain't my first day. And so I want to make sure that if the wording is that it's eliminated and some resolution is eliminated, then it is closely followed by creating.
So,
Because we can't continue to operate as a 4-person that's not going to service to any of your constituents or our customers.
so Ms. Price, the recommendation that's before us that both of you prepared is to recommend a motion to move a deputy clerk position from the clerk of court's office to the register and probate's office, and then also to recommend a motion to move the
salary and benefits of a deputy clerk from the clerk of court's budget to the register and probate's budget with the authority to advertise for the position if approved by the county board. And then going on to present this resolution to the county board. So the language that I don't think anyone has proposed changing the language unless you're doing that from committee members. Okay, so I think the language is still moved, and Mr. Southwood raises. Go
I
ahead.
think perhaps the clerk is suggesting, so I agree that the resolution would read that it would be the elimination of one position and the creation of another position. Would be the way I think it would be worded.
Okay, Supervisor Gentis.
I'm totally confused.
Make sure to speak into your microphone. Sorry.
How,
it's a little-
how are you getting 5 people when you have 4 now? I don't get where you're getting. I don't mind that you're gonna.
Between the two departments, I'm sorry.
But right now you have how many?
Between the two departments, there are 4.
And how are you gonna get 5?
By filling the position that I have had open in my office since April 10th. And
Okay.
instead of me hiring that position and having that person
I got it.
physically in my office, they will physically be in Jen's office, and she will be the supervisor
Okay,
instead of,
I got it.
we work together. These were, as you guys can recall, they were within the same budget up until a couple of years. So if you think of them as still together, a little bit separate.
Okay, Supervisor Seat.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is an excellent example of interdepartment cooperation and model for other departments. And allow why this recommendation. Fully supported.
Okay, I also want to echo what Supervisor Seat said. I was pleased to see this come forward and that you guys can help us save a little money when times are tight. So I just want to echo that. Any other committee members? Cliff Fawcett?
Not arguing against what you want to do, but you need to eliminate the position in your office to create the one in your office. Otherwise, you would have an open position that could be filled by you at any time.
Only if this body were to
That's
allow that, that's where removing that by.
we need that in the resolution.
And I just want to add that, since April 10th, by not doing this position, we have saved Richland County approximately $18,000.
Okay, so I think with that, we're ready to entertain a motion here.
Mr. Chair, I will make the motion that we eliminate and add.
Okay, so we have a motion to, let's see, the recommended motion that we have in front of us is to move the deputy clerk and to move the salary and benefits. It sounds like when Mr. Southwood gets this, he's going to replace it with that language of elimination and create. And I'm sure Clerk of Court Pleiss, you'll have to make sure you look at this when it gets to the full county board to make sure that, yes. So I think what we want to do is move forward with the motion that they laid out here, Supervisor Brewer. Otherwise, we might have to make an amendment.
That's fine. We can move forward with that motion.
Okay, so a motion by Supervisor Brewer. Second by Supervisor Seat. All those in favor signify.
Just
Oh, sorry. Supervisor
we
Seat.
got to make sure that we do this right so we don't have to change it. I understand what Stacy's saying. We're not going to eliminate the position, but you have to take it off one book and put it on another. I mean, that's what it has to happen. I don't think anybody's trying to eliminate a position, but I think the wording has to be right. So if we need to amend this now, let's amend it now so that we get.
All right. The clerk
Yes.
stated it correctly. The resolution would read that one position is being eliminated and one position is being created in the same resolution. That's the way it would work.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Do we need to, how do we procedurally do this if we make an amendment? Mr. Southwood?
Mr. Supervisor Brewer made the motion is the way I stated it. I believe he stated it the way I just stated it, to eliminate one position and create another position in the same resolution.
Can you make that clear again, Supervisor Brewer? Because I made you change your mind.
My
What Mr. Brewer
recommendation-
said is he said he recommends to eliminate a deputy clerk position from the county clerk's office and create a deputy clerk position in the register of probate's office. Is that correct, Mr. Brewer?
Yeah, pretty close.
Okay, so we got a motion from Supervisor Brewer, Supervisor Seat. Do you agree with that as a second?
Thank you. Fully agree.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion by Supervisor Brewer? Yes, Cliff Classic.
There's also a new job description for the new position.
And so are you saying that the motion should also include the creation of that job description?
The approval of it, yes. 'Cause it
Approval of
doesn't
the job
exist right now.
Okay, Supervisor Brewer, are you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Supervisor Seat, are you?
I am.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? I'm gonna restate it, so the motion is to eliminate a deputy clerk position in the clerk of court's office and to create a deputy clerk position in the register and probate's office and to approve the job description for the new position in the register and probate's office. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Thanks to both of you. Okay, so agenda item number 13, Deputy Register of Deeds resignation and recruitment. So Register of Deeds, Triggs, are you here today?
Can you hear me?
She's remote, that's right. Ms. Triggs, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Before I couldn't.
Okay. Yeah, so if you could present on this item, we are ready for you.
Okay, my deputy has given me her resignation, and I put an ad in the paper to rehire, and so I just wanted to inform the committee that that's what I'm doing.
Okay, and Ms. Triggs, you have a recommendation here. It says receive and file budget update for the Register of Deeds office. So I think that's what we have on the table here. So questions or comments from committee members?
Mr. Chair, I think we probably have to accept the resignation.
So Mr. Brewer, I did, so Ms. Triggs and I looked through this. We do not actually have to do that according to the handbook because I believe I went through this. Ms. Triggs, can you speak to this too? I'm not making this up, am I? You look through that and you don't actually, you have that authority through state statute, is it?
I think it's in the county policy. I gave Vic a copy of the resignation, and in the state statutes, it says that the Register of Deeds shall have a deputy. So I don't think I need your permission to rehire, but I'm just letting you know that that's what I'm doing. There might be an increase depending on who I hire. My deputy that I had was not taking health insurance, and so it would increase my budget if whoever I hire does decide to take health insurance.
So, Mr. Brewer, we did go through this, Ms. Triggs and I, and it does not look like there's a need for us to accept the resignation. We don't have the authority to do that, and there's no need to do that. We may have done that in the past, and Ms. Triggs and I discussed that, but we couldn't find any authority for that. So that's why this is just an update, a budget update for us, especially because of that potential health insurance impact coming down the pike. And Ms. Triggs is just trying to keep us informed so that we know if she goes over budget that this may be the reason why.
Thank you for that explanation.
Supervisor Seat?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under the old handbook, I believe that all job descriptions were subject to review and updating upon the vacancy of the position Does that apply to this position as well? Mr. Langren, maybe?
I understand that is part of the handbook language where it says reevaluate, and it has different posting protocols as well. But we do have different state statutes where I believe this position also serves as a pleasure for appointment. Where they fall, I guess I would look back to past practice, and engage with past practice, we do follow handbook. Is that correct? Kind of we went along with handbook procedures for recruiting for elected official deputies. Mr. Southwood?
I don't think there's any action needed to be taken by the committee on this matter. I think the administrator spoke correctly. And I don't mean to be flippant, but there's no such thing as accepting a resignation. I don't mean to be flippant, but they outlawed slavery a long time ago.
Okay, anyone else?
Mr. Chair,
My question was answered.
Okay, Mr. C, can you restate okay, so your question, can you restate it, please?
Because this is an elected position, in other words, Ms. Trigg's position, her deputy position, county employee, does that position require an updating, a review and an updating of the job description, as we are required to do with other county employees on vacancy of position?
I'm wondering, Administrator Langbeck, can you look into that and then get back to us on that question? Right. Unless you know it right now. Unless someone else does.
I can research that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. The other committee
Mr.
members?
Chair. Oh.
Yes, Ms. Driggs. Go ahead.
I can't hear everything that's being said, so if you could just, reiterate so I could maybe hear it a little better.
Yep, absolutely. That's good to know. We'll try to be better about speaking right into our microphones too. But so Supervisor Seep had a question. He is wondering if, because the position is vacant, if the job description should be reevaluated. And that's based on some language that he recalls from the employee handbook. And we asked Administrator Langrecht to research that. No one really seems to know the answer.
Actually, the job description is in the state statutes.
Okay.
And so I don't know how much reevaluating the county itself can do, since it is spelled out in the state statutes. I
see. Okay. Thank you. So Administrator Langrecht will probably be connecting with you about that. We'll look at that language in our employee handbook to try to answer that question. So thank you. Okay. I think with that, we can move on from this agenda item. Thank you, Ms. Driggs, for presenting this to us today.
You're welcome.
All right, so
can I go ahead and hire?
Human Services, Administrative Services Unit Restructuring. Administrator Lindbergh.
Share this agenda item is brought forward from Health and Human Services Board, action taken on 7/9/2020. Looking for a recommendation today. Health and Human Services recommends changing the organizational structure of the Administrative Services Unit by creating two separate units. The Administrative Services Unit will become the Administration and Building Operations Unit and the Business and Financial Services Unit. For those of you that have the materials, you'll see the breakdown of the different hierarchy and the diagram showing the breakdown. Background, the Administrative Building Operations and Business Finance functions of the Administrative Services Unit have evolved into distinctly separate functions. The Manager of Operations primarily oversees all business and fiscal issues, while the Administrative Supervisor primarily oversees the administrative support and building maintenance issues. There is not a need for these functions to be combined into one unit, and it creates an unnecessary layer of management. Director Thorson is here also to expound upon this as requested, Mr. Chair.
Okay, committee members. Questions or comments?
Is there any impact to the budget due to this change?
Can you repeat? Can you speak a little closer into the microphone?
Is there any impact to the budget due to this change? Raise? Everybody's salary change.
Ms. Thorson?
No wage changes as a result of this, of the institution are the same.
Any other committee members? If there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to create these two separate units in HHS.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Supervisor Brewer. Second by Supervisor Dentis. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 15, Health and Human Services Positions Descriptions Updates. Mr. Chair, this item is brought forward by Health and Human Services Board, action taken on 7/9/2020. Recommended motion is Health and Human Services recommends that the following position descriptions and titles, if specified, need to be updated as a result of the change to the organizational structure within the departments referred to in the attached position descriptions. The two different units are being reconfigured, so we're looking at changes to Administration and Building Operations Manager, Confidential Administrative Secretary 2, Secretary, two secretary positions, Clerical Assistant 2, and then in the Business and Financial Services Unit, the Business and Financial Services Manager, and Fiscal Specialist 3 position, and then underneath the Behavioral Health Services Unit, Business Systems Analysis. And I will defer to Director Thorson for further information, projecting no financial impact.
All of these positions are just to organize the organizational structure, except for the behavioral health position. This is essentially cleanup. This is the former business systems supervisor that is in the behavioral health unit. The supervisor title, this position doesn't really supervise staff. All the staff in the behavioral health unit are clinical staff, and this position wouldn't be able to supervise them. It is a vital position within the structure of behavioral health, and so the proposal is to change the position title to business systems analyst. It would not have any supervisory responsibility.
Okay, committee members. No comments or questions? Oh, go ahead.
I should note that there are two vacant positions within these position description changes. Secretary position that is a 35-hour per week position, and the clerical assistant 2 position, which is a 37.5-hour per week position. The one change for those two positions is to bring it up to 40 hours. Like we have done with all of the other positions within Health and Human Services. Those positions remain vacant. There is not an intention to change them, but this is an opportunity to bring it up to be consistent with positions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Thorson. If there's no questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion.
Comment.
Yep.
So there is a financial impact once these positions are filled, because you're taking two positions, one up 5 hours a week, the other one up 2.5.
If they would be filled, that's correct.
So my only question is if, do we want to fill them? It shouldn't be an if. If the positions are on the books, then our intention should be to fill them. If there's not an intention to fill them, then we should remove them. That's my opinion.
The positions have been vacant for probably over a year because of budgetary reasons for not filling them, and we have not pursued filling them because of that. Not that there isn't work to do, but we haven't been able to identify the funding source at this time.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
are there not more positions over there that are unfilled? There are several, I thought.
I believe there may be, I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me. I'm not sure if I could list if there are other positions that are.
Great. Any Supervisor Seat?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Either whether we fill these positions or not at a future date is all contingent upon considerations. Is that right, Ms. Thorson?
That's correct. That's the reason why we've left them vacant. It's, we do feel that there is a need for those positions, but until we are able to identify funding to support them, we will keep them vacant.
Would it be Ms. Thorson's preference to keep those positions on the books? Current intent to fill them because of budgetary reasons?
It would be my request to maintain those positions. Should we have the ability with funding, we would need the positions to fulfill. Supervisor Peterson just handed me the list of our vacancies. Currently, there is two mental health therapist positions vacant at Health and Human Services. The clerical assistant too that is mentioned in this item. The administrative secretary also mentioned in this agenda item. There is also a quality coordinator position in the behavioral health unit that has been vacant for some time. It's been left on hold. There is a early intervention special educator that has been on hold again due to funding. Occupational therapist position, speech and language pathologist position, 2 public health nurse positions, a public health and wellness coordinator position, and 1 nutrition site worker position. Some of those positions we are attempting to recruit, but we've struggled to fill them. Others we've left on hold because of funding concerns.
Any other comments or questions?
So
Supervisor Cruz?
when we get to funding concerns, as long as these are on the books, who justifies that the funding is there? Does that come through us? I mean, if they're on the books and you have the opportunity to bid that job, if you have funding, correct? It doesn't take any approval. So where I'm going with this is we can add positions, as long as they're on the books, we can add positions or not fill positions as we deem necessary, or what. My concern is that we fill a position and then the funding falls through and then we have the position. So are we going to remove the person from the position when we no longer have the funding? That's my question.
Let's give staff a chance to respond to that.
So I believe that the county handbook indicates that intention to fill a position needs to come back to, I believe, the Finance and Personnel Committee. It's possibly included in the Health and Human Services addendum that it's for our department. It may go through there. I believe there's some language that's going to be before this committee that transfers that over to the county administrator. That's my recollection of the policy. You're right that there are some positions where we have been actively recruiting for because they're on our books, that we do that going forward with internal department decision that we have funding. So it is a department head decision, I believe, that happens with some of that.
I guess in my opinion, if we should add positions and remove positions according to how we can afford to pay for them, right? So anytime we don't fill a position for a long period of time, I think we should assess whether we need the position. And we should remove it from the books if we don't need it. And if there comes a time down the road where we have to add it back because things change, then we should do that. I'm not a big fan of just leaving positions out there open to fill as we maybe want to or whatever. To me, the water gets muddy and stuff like that. Yes, in my opinion, if we function for a year or 2 years without anyone in the position, I really have a hard time understanding why we need the position. So I guess that's where I stand on this. Okay, Supervisor C.
Mr. Chairman, with Mr. Cooley's facility in articulating an argument, then I think we should defer to reference our confidence in a very which has been appointed by the county board.
Mr. Z, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but your microphone's going in and out. I wonder if the IT staff can replace it.
Well, it could be an ask.
Okay. Okay, just speak as loud as you can.
Ms. Thorson is first accountable to the to her Health and Human Services Board, which is ultimately accountable to the county board as a whole. And I think we should express our confidence in the ability of that board to evaluate this question. I say that in a complimentary way to Mr. Cooley.
So I'm just going to step in here. I know that because we have this on our agenda for agenda item number 22 about amendments to the administrative manual, there is a section on here about vacancies. So it'd probably be good to read through that. Supervisor Cooley, you might have suggestions about how that should or shouldn't be changed. So it might be good to review that. We're going to be undergoing a lot of review of our manuals, our addendums, as we transition to the administrator form of government model. And so let's keep that in mind, I think, as we're moving forward. If you have suggestions, it'd be good, I think, to bring those to this committee. I'm not sure if our handbooks address that myself.
This doesn't go just towards Tracy. This is the county as a whole. If we don't fill positions for a long period of time, we need to reassess what we are doing. That's it. Tracy just happens to be the one up here today. It has nothing to do with her. But anytime you got a position that you leave open for multiple years or a year, I mean, it's our job to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Now, if it's needed, it's needed, and you just can't fill it. I get that too. I mean, there are positions that happen that way. But we got to really look at the bottom line and what it costs to do business. And whoever doesn't think this is a business, then I feel sorry.
Okay, so I think we need to move on here because we've got quite a long agenda. So I entertain a motion to move forward with this. Committee members?
I'll make that motion. And Mr. Cooley, thank you for your comments. Right on.
Okay, so a motion by Supervisor Brewer. A second?
I'll be happy to second the motion that was spoken to Mr. Cooley.
Okay, second by Supervisor C. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Agenda item number 16, Child and Youth Services Supervisor position creation. Every one of you would like that.
Mr. Chair, our recommendation today is Health and Human Services recommends creating a Child and Youth Services Supervisor position in order to address the supervisory support and backup needs in the Child Youth Services unit. Looking then to approve changing one of the existing Child and Youth Services case managers positions to a Child and Youth Services Supervisor position. See the attached position description and name Kayla Williams to the position starting at step 2, grade K of the county pay plan. Also approve revising the definitions section of the Handbook of Personnel Policies and Work Rules of Richland County and the Richland County Wage Scale to include the new position at Health and Human Services and forward the recommendation on the finance where we're at today on the county board for approval. I will defer to Director Thorson for details.
Okay, Administrator Langreich, this is listed as it's in the adopted budget in fund number 56.
highlight that as well. Committee members, any questions or comments for Ms. Thorson? Supervisor Cooey?
How can we create a position and appoint someone to a position without posting?
It's not common, but it has been done by the board when someone has been identified for position. Because we would be requesting to eliminate one of our case management positions and move that staff person into the supervisor position, this allows us to address the supervisory needs that we need in that unit without eliminating staff or moving staff. There's one staff person in that unit who has the appropriate number of years of experience and training that would be qualified for this position. And so moving the position means that we aren't eliminating any of our staff that we're addressing the supervisor.
That still really doesn't answer my question. I get awful concerned when we just do things. When you have a bid process, which I assume we do, if we don't, we should have. You can get yourself into trouble by just appointing people into different places. That's my concern. It isn't about the need. It isn't about anything other. It is a concern of how we do business that upsets me, I would say. I just wish we had a little more clarification on how we should be operating as a county when it comes to posting jobs, creating jobs, removing jobs. I think we've got a lot of work. It isn't your ability, what you need, and I'm fine with what you need. I don't have a problem with that. I just have a problem with the process we used to get. That's where
Again, Supervisor Cooey, I think there is a section in here on how jobs in the administrative manual about how jobs should be, how vacancies should be filled. And I believe what's happening here today, if I understand correctly, Ms. Thorson, is you are asking for an exception to that policy.
That's correct. I appreciate what Supervisor Cooey is saying. I think that following a consistent process is important. What we're trying to do is address a need without laying off a staff that we think is a valuable staff. It would be an exception, and I do understand the concern with being a consistent process.
Okay, any other committee member questions or comments on this one? Yep, Supervisor Gentis.
And so, changing a case worker to a supervisor, and is there any increase of funds you're paying for that? Yes, the budget will absorb that in 2020. The cost will be roughly $2,800 for the wage increase that would be associated with that. And then we are building that into the budget in 2021 to address that.
Anything else, Supervisor Gentis? Okay. I'll give Supervisor Gotchel a chance to come up if you don't mind stepping aside, Ms. Thorson, so he can use the microphone. Thank you.
As not a voting member of this committee, I just offer an opinion. I'm with Supervisor Cooey. I would add a little more context to that to say that we can gain some efficiency with an administrator model to hire internally and all for that. We don't need to post positions externally with no intentions to fill them externally. I think that's a piece of efficiency that we should gain. I am concerned, not necessarily with this position. I know the individual, I know she's very well qualified, no concerns there. Doing it all in one foul swoop like this gives at least the impression that we are, as a county, picking people out of roles and promoting them by committee instead of an internal interview process.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Gotchel. Supervisor C.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the comments here. It is not as though this process is not transparent. It certainly is. It's transparent by coming before the elected committees with a responsibility for hearing these questions and making judgments about them. It would be not transparent if it was done by the director or people in her department without any accountability or disclosure of this action to supervising committees and to the county board. So there is a process here for transparency. And she's bringing this forward to this committee, and eventually it'll go to the county board. So it isn't as though something is being done without transparency, number one. And I think we should be supportive. No rule is ever made that doesn't on occasion require an exception. Mr. Southwood can tell you about the revisions in the laws and the statutes that are constantly occurring. Laws change, rules change, and county ordinances change, county policies have to change, and there has to be exceptions on occasion. Nothing is engraved in a golden tablet. So I support the request.
Okay, any other, Supervisor Boone, do you have any comments? I lived in the world of posting for 30 years, working for the big company. And I believe in the posting of jobs and opportunity to all employees. So to vote, I think, against this change in committee, I'll probably vote against it now because we should post. Certainly, even if we're not going outside, we should post internally. Okay, I do think myself personally that we need to look at what our process is already laid out and looking like in our administrative manual and in our handbook, and have a debate on just this topic about how we should be filling vacancies. I know that this was another issue on our next agenda item, number 17. We all received an email about this earlier today from Quick Classic. And I think that's probably the next step. You know, obviously a lot of this, I think a lot of these responsibilities, should this committee and the county board go along with all these changes, are probably going to be shifting from our committee to the administrator. But I think we all need to be clear about what the policy is, what the procedure is for filling positions. I have worked at a government agency myself where it was possible to internally hire. And that process was laid out and was clear. And so I think we just need to make clear how we're doing that, set the policy forward. In my opinion, would be get out of the way so staff can follow the policy. So we set the policy and then let them carry it out. So my opinion is I think it would be great to have this come back to this committee as soon as next month, so we can talk about the policy as it's laid out today, figure out what we want it to look like moving forward. One question I do have for Ms. Thorson is this going to cause any issues with, will this have to lay off Ms. Wilson in the meantime because of this, if we don't take this action today, or can you hit the pause button?
No, this, because there's an existing position that the worker is and that's nothing.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to table this item. That's seconded by Supervisor Dentis. Any discussion on the motion to table? Yes, Supervisor C.
No discussion allowed on table.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to table, please signify by, let's do a roll call on this. Quick lesson. Yes, Supervisor Gentis seconded my motion.
Murphy Lopez,
Aye.
Gentis, Brewer,
Aye.
Seat,
The motion is to table, correct?
That's correct.
I vote no.
Cooley, Four in favor and one against.
Okay, so this item, number 16, has been tabled. Moving on to agenda item number 17, Health and Human Services Addendum and County Handbook Amendments. Administrator Lang.
Referred by Health and Human Services Board 7/9/2020. Recommendation coming from Health and Human Services Board proposes the following changes to the county handbook of personnel policies and work rules. Affecting Health and Human Services. And without the handout there, it's quite a lengthy, but the overall gist of it is we're looking to impact the different work hours and operations for the building, as well as touching on the topic of which we just discussed with filling vacancies in the position. Allowing for promotions, transfers, and demotions or new hires within the department. About the posting requirements. Also looking for, I guess maybe Tracy, you can give a better versed summary of it than mine.
This is a proposal to make two changes to the county handbook, and the remainder changes are to the Health and Human Services Addendum. So the county handbook is really updating all the position titles that are, and correcting any that are incorrect in the county handbook. And then also making a change to the Health and Human Services office hours of operation. Currently, Health and Human Services operates from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The proposal is to change that from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. to be more in line with the majority of the departments that are in the courthouse. The changes for the Health and Human Services Addendum include all on page 2 of that, the terms and conditions of employment would reflect that all positions are at 40 hours per week. So right now it lists all the various levels of hours that are historical in the agency. Performance evaluations would be changed to be done annually rather than designating that they must be done on the individual's anniversary of employment. Comp time would be proposed to allow a maximum accrual of 40 hours of comp time instead of 24 hours in order to offer a little bit more flexibility in how staff do their job and accrue comp time, and that would reduce the potential of the agency needing to pay out more comp time for staff. On call pay, the language is changing to reflect how the agency practices. The language was not consistent with the historical practice of how on-call pay was provided to staff, and also would provide holiday pay for on-call an extra 25 cents an hour, whether the staff person is working on the county holiday or the actual holiday, if that happens to be different. So it would pay for both of those if they're two different dates. Under hiring, as I believe the Administrator Langren had mentioned, the proposal to allow for promotions within the agency without first advertising them publicly. And then several other changes which shift the personnel issues over to the county administrator rather than the Health and Human Services Board. I believe that's all of them.
Thank you, Ms. Thorson. So yeah, I was just kind of scrolling through this as you were going through them, and I think the only one that would then raise a concern for me is the one that we just discussed regarding hiring and employment considerations. So there are several changes in there about being able to fill positions using promotions or transfers, demotions. And so I'm thinking what my opinion is, I'm curious what other committee members think, is that we might want to approve the changes except for that section under hiring and employment considerations, or at least consider doing that in a motion. to keep everything else moving forward, but to allow that discussion to happen over what do we want the countywide policy to be about internal promotions.
I would agree with that.
Other committee members? Okay. Supervisor Seat, you might disagree with that. I'm assuming that you want to speak to that.
Question is, or rather observation is, this whole matter has been reviewed by your Health and Human Services Board. We have 7 county board members on board. Really?
No, not, we have 7 Health and Human Services Board members for our county board.
Okay. And did they review this and unanimously forward it with a recommendation for approval?
I think it was unanimous.
I am very reluctant, Mr. Chairman, to second guess the work of the board or committee. So, you know, there may be room for further discussion about this, and I would be interested in, if there is a need for further discussion, a response from Mr. Weinberg in terms of his view of this proposal. If he has concerns, I would like to hear them. Otherwise, support this request.
Well, I guess I'd just like to say that I appreciate that this is a issue that's broader than Health and Human Services, and I certainly wouldn't object for it to be looked at countywide. So I can appreciate it. It was one of the reviewed areas of our addendum, which is why it's brought forward, but certainly it has an impact across the
Okay, thank you, Ms. Thorson. Yeah, me personally, I just think that it brings up the discussion, it brings up the point, we need to get this resolved and have a countywide policy on it. So I apologize that we have to slow down a couple of your items today, but I think it brought up some good questions that we need to be having some discussion. So I think, as a chair, can I make a motion? Is that right? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Southwick. So I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve these changes with the exception of the section that's titled hiring and employment considerations.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, second by Supervisor Brewer. Any further discussion on the motion? Supervisor Seat?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In view of the positive comments just made by Director Thorson, I will support this.
Okay, any other committee member comments?
So all of your positions are now 40 hours.
This along with the previous item on the agenda would make all of them 40 hours.
Clerk Classic, that's it for county board.
Just one question, how many positions will then move to 40 hours that aren't current?
Just the 2 that were
Just the
brought.
2 we talked about before, right? All the other ones we've already moved to 40 hours, if I remember right.
And Ms. Thorson, you want to say something else?
Just a question when you mentioned the section of the addendum. Are you just focused on that one position, or the other pieces of that section move the personnel issues over to the county administrator?
Oh, thank you, Ms. Thorson. Yeah, so what I meant in my motion was
Paragraphs
scroll through this.
1A and B potentially that talk about the.
Thank you. Yes, so
Page 4. Oh, sorry.
yeah, so what I mean specifically, I should say, is paragraphs 1A and 1B, hiring and employment considerations. Because paragraph 1C has to do with interviews, and obviously there would not be an internal promotion. That's what we've been debating. Well, I'd withdraw my previous motion and make my motion be that we approve all changes except for those enumerated in 1A. Supervisor Brewer, is that okay with you as far as the second goes?
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay,
Good question.
is
The
it-
40-hour comp time, which is another different agenda. This department is the only one. with 40 hours.
So didn't we bring that up for highway also? I remember, right, Roger, we brought that up for highway, right? So then they'd be the same throughout the county?
Looking to address it in item number 18.
Okay, so yes, let's go ahead and move forward with a vote on this. So all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. I'm going to go ahead and call for a 5-minute break so we can get a little fresh air. So let's be back here at 2:48, 43 right now.
Everybody is. This is what we have for microphone, for sound back. WebEx. Keep changing all these menus like this. It's just a nightmare for us trying to figure out how to get all this stuff. So I mean, I like the White House. I think the White House is small. They want like $400. Oh, they really? They do? It's like $3 or $4. Phoenix Sun costs $20. I thought the White House was better. I didn't realize that I thought he'd let me do it. I think Barb talked to I and I'm pretty sure. Dewey himself? I don't know if she talked to Dewey or just trying to get that. I don't know. What about the Phoenix Sun? I don't know if anybody's asked on that.
Have nothing.
ended.
Everyone, if you could find your way back to your seats and jump in at agenda item number 18. Okay, everyone, let's get back to our seats here. Just a reminder, we can look at the seating arrangement next time to make this a little more natural, but we have to talk into our microphones. It's, of course, the inclination is to turn to a person and talk when you're talking, but then the people who are on WebEx or who are watching this later can't hear what we're saying. So just for today, we're gonna have to pretend like the people are right in front of us, and we can redo the seating arrangement next time. So agenda item number 18, compensatory time accumulation, Administrator Langrick.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to amend the Richland County Handbook of Personnel Policies and Work Rules of Richland County, Compensation and Fringe Benefits section, paragraph 8, pages 14 and 15, to allow a maximum accumulation of compensatory time of 40 hours. Currently reads, compensatory time may be accumulated up to a maximum of 24 hours per calendar year, shall then in all instances be taken by the last pay period of the calendar year in which it was generated, or it will be paid for by the last pay period of the year, looking to change 24 to 40 hours. This change is requested based on conversation with Highway, Health and Human Services, which we just addressed and talked of, Sheriff's Office. The increase will allow for reduced overtime expenditures and help in employee retention. How it is visualized. May result in budget reduction if more compensatory time is taken, less overtime is paid out potentially, but that depends on variables. Sure.
Okay, committee members, any questions or comments for Administrator Langrick? Supervisor Cooey?
Yeah, I would just say I'm full support of this.
Okay, any other committee members? Supervisor Seat? Supervisor Seat, that microphone's got to be a lot closer to your mouth.
I am happy to join with Mr. Cooey in seconding the motion.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to move forward with this. Motion by Supervisor Cooey, second by Supervisor Seat. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Agenda item, I'm going to skip over the budget. Administrator Langrick, we can hit that last. That's okay. So agenda item number 20, County COVID-19 Plan Amendments.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to recommend proposed changes to the Rules and Resolutions Committee and Health and Human Services Board for consideration and referral to the County Board for resolution. The COVID-19 plan was adopted by the Personnel and Finance Committee on March 17, 2020, revised in May, initially adopted by the County Board in May. Revisions to the plan may be made by County Administrator in collaboration with Public Health Local Health Officer. The plan may be brought back before the County Board upon request of the Board Chair or at the discretion of the Administrator. Nature of the changes would impact the public and constituents, so I'm recommending that we bring it back to the County Board. The proposed revisions include amendments to method of spread. As we learn more about the COVID-19, we learned that it's mostly droplet aerosol type spread. Amendments to identifying symptoms of COVID, which we included additional symptoms that we're learning about with it. We're looking for amendments to non-pharmaceutical interventions, which include now masking. Back in May, it was yet determined consistently by health officials whether masking was a good idea or bad idea. It is now overwhelmingly promoted by health officials as a good idea. And then we're also looking for amendments to public meetings, requiring those in attendance to wear face coverings, availability of teleconferencing in meetings, also directive to specify committees, boards, and commissions to make teleconferencing available. We also then have amendments to travel restrictions based on the different environment and climate that we're dealing with the COVID-19. The changes can be seen in the document for those that are viewing. Again, some of this kind of, when we talk about meetings in public places, it kind of covers and overlaps with, obviously here at the university, we're dealing with a different set of policies that say masking is required. We also have the governor's order in place that is requiring masking. Some of this, though, is to try to help cement expectations for public meetings in the event that the legislator or court or someone overturns the governor's order. We also have in the directive for the teleconferencing for the meetings, there is an additional addition on several of the committees to require posting recordings, which would include Richland County Board, Finance and Personnel Committee, Rules and Resolutions Committee, Law Enforcement and Judiciary Committee. Mr. Chair.
Okay, so questions or comments from committee members?
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Brewer.
The pandemic has been very tough to deal with, and unfortunately it's become a political issue in my opinion. And wholeheartedly supporting these amendments, and I'll make that motion.
Okay, a motion by Supervisor Brewer, second by Supervisor Gentis. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Agenda item number 21, Administrative Coordinator Ordinances. Administrator Langer.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to recommend an ordinance to the Richland County Board to repeal ordinance number 86-6, establishment of an administrative coordinator to direct that current insurance and budgetary duties of the Richland County Clerk's Office remain in place until directed otherwise by the Richland County Board. Background: the Richland County Board of Supervisors ordained designation of administrative coordinator position on 16 September 1986 by Ordinance 86-6 in accordance with Wisconsin State Statute 59034, now covered underneath 5919. The Richland County Board of Supervisors created the position of county administrator by resolution number 1993 on 20 August 2019 in accordance with Wisconsin State Statute 5918. Having an administrator and administrative coordinator creates conflicting roles by statute. It is recommended a position of administrative coordinator be dissolved with repeal of ordinance number 86-6. This action would be in line with continued efforts to transition to an administrator model of county government. Any future recommended changes regarding administration will continue to stay within statutory boundaries established by 5918 county administrator and 5923. And then the attachments kind of show the ordinance 86-6 with pink kind of indicating the insurance expectations placed on the position, green the financial and budgetary expectations, blue the auditing expectations, and orange the building manager expectations. And then on the administrator's position description, it kind of shows the overlap then with the expectations on the administrative position descriptions according to the color code. Mr. Chair.
Okay, committee members, questions or comments? Yes, Supervisor Seat.
Move for adoption.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Seat, second by Supervisor Cooey. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Agenda item number 22, Administrative Manual and Employee Handbook Amendments. Administrator Linder.
Mr. Chair, looking for a motion to recommend proposed amendments to the Administrative Manual of Richland County established through resolution number 14126, and amendments to resolution 1687, and refer to the Rules and Resolution Committee for potential changes to the committee structure resolution as it relates to the responsibilities of Finance and Personnel Committee, with resolution referral to the county board. A little meaty, but the gist of it is we're trying to address the administrative manual and changes with the administrator model of county government. And then also through the changes in the administrative manual, some of that is touching on the right now the authorities and duties of the Finance and Personnel Committee as defined through the committee structures document. Background: at the July 21, 2020 meeting, the Richland County Board job descriptions of the administrator and 13 department heads were amended, which we addressed at the last county board meeting. Some of those proposals, again, talked on to defining supervisory types of roles for the administrator and guidance, and assuming those roles. So the proposed changes in here are talking to that effect. I hope that everybody has access to them, as there are quite a few of them. Is there more detail that you'd like on that, Mr. Chair? Or that you feel should be projected to folks out in the public that might not be able to view it?
Going back to your cover sheet here, so there are several, our administrative manual covers hiring, performance evaluation, discipline, separation, sexual harassment, accident reporting, and the county's drug and alcohol policy. And the only other thing I think I would add here, reading through this, is that much of this responsibility has rested on the Finance and Personnel Committee. And what's being proposed here is to hand off much of that responsibility over to the administrator. That does not change our role to set policy, but as far as carrying the policy out and figuring out how it should be carried out, that would shift over to the administrator. And there are several locations in here where it says the administrator or their designee. And knowing that Mr. Langrecht cannot do all of the things listed in there, there may be employees who would have to designate some of these things. So that would be the only other piece I would highlight. So, committee member questions or comments?
Can I make one more comment, Mr. Chair? It probably should also be pointed out that should these changes be adopted by the county board, we'll have to make similar changes potentially in the handbook so that the two kind of coincide. Some of the changes proposed to the administrative manual potentially be in conflict until we can firm out the employee handbook as well.
Yes. Committee members? Okay, well, no questions or comments, and I'd entertain a motion. Motion by Supervisor Seat, second by Supervisor Gentis. All those, any further discussion? Yes.
Is this just the administrative manual?
That is what I am proposing. The administrative manual.
Yes. So quick classic, at the very end of it, it says here that similar changes should be brought forward in September for the employee. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 23, Simon's Interim Director Vacation Time Extension. Administrator Langford.
Chair, I recommend motion to extend Tracy Gobin's vacation until the end of the calendar year. Tracy is currently appointed as the interim director for Simon Center. She is the assistant. She'll be serving for us throughout the remainder of the year. Her assistant position now is not filled. So she is kind of wearing two hats and assuming two workloads through the duration until we get to the end of the year. So not a lot of opportunity for her to use that vacation time. Making a recommendation to go ahead with the same motion presented by her board.
Okay, questions or comments from committee members? Not, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move for adoption.
Motion by Supervisor Brewer, second by Supervisor Koo. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to agenda item number 25, County Treasurer Cash Balance History and Revenue Reports. Treasurer Keller, would you mind approaching the microphone? Giving us any highlights that you wish to give? I have to go a little closer, sorry.
I've updated these with the most current figures that I have. If there's any questions, the only thing that
We're just handing out copies here to a couple of supervisors.
the only questions on these, the only thing I wanted to add was the delinquent tax history report. I put on the total in for the July 31 tax collections, the unpaid balance. However, we did do a lot of mail on Monday that was July 31st postmark. We now are down to 799, and we still have more coming from the July 31st postmark.
I also see here, Treasurer Keller, that sales tax revenues have continued, it looks like, to mostly keep pace with last year, if not almost exceed it. So it seems that people are still spending quite a bit of money, at least in Richland County. They're not driving to Madison anymore to get all their stuff.
I was really surprised it was that high. But good news.
Great news. Okay,
Treasurer Keller has been going door to door promoting shopping local.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Great. Okay, any other comments or questions? Supervisor Gensis, yep.
I couldn't wait to hear this. I want to know today what was happening.
Not looking too bad.
Nice to have good news. Okay, thank you, Treasurer Keller. Agenda item number 26, County Clerk Cash Trial Balance and Investment Reports. Clerk Lawson.
I don't have access to the reports. You have questions?
Any questions or comments from committee members? We are on 26, County Clerk Cash Trial Balance and Investment. Give everyone just a few seconds to look over these. If there are no questions or comments, we'll go ahead and move back up the agenda to number 19, Preliminary 2021 Budget Report. Administrator Langman.
Mr. Chair, looking today for a motion to continue with approved budget process and present the Finance and Personnel Committee with review budgets and capital improvement expenditures planning on your September 1st, 2020 meeting. Background, we're moving now into the review phase of the approved budget process. The County Administrator will be meeting with department heads to review preliminary budgets, capital improvements, and proposed adjustments in efforts to meet the approved budget objectives. Our preliminary summary is currently right now we're looking at an 11 gap in operations of 765,000 rounded gap to try to close in the review process. Our levy limit right now, I don't believe, Julie, that we've seen that come from the Department of Revenue on what our equalized value is to know what our operational levy limit will be going forward yet. Wages and benefits, we do not yet have a health insurance adjustments for the rates going in forward in 2021. Estimate on the incremental wage increase, one step for all departments comes to 242,000. That was one of our goals. We're going to try to incorporate that as well. That would add to our gap. New equipment, we're putting in, trying to put back in 122,000 that was pulled out at the end of the last budget cycle going forward in 2020. If we're trying to meet our reserve and designated fund goal established by Resolution 1598, That goal says that we should have 20%, 25% of total spending budget annually, which would mean our 2019 goal is a little past 8.1 million. We started this year with 3.9 in there. The difference in that being about 4.2. By resolution, we said we should have a 2-year plan to try to close that gap. Would add another 2.1 to the gap. So those are our goals. Again, the big number being the levy gap on the top, with some unknown variables and other resolution goals that we're going to try to tidy up and bring back to you a proposed solution for next month's meeting. Would you like to go through the details to the back?
I think Administrator Lindgren, if you could just walk us through each page and not go in great detail, but just explain what each page is, because I flipped through this earlier and I had a little bit of a hard time following it. If you could just give an overview of the 12 pages, that would be great.
Certainly can, and if I get stuck, I would probably have to defer to Clerk Velasic. But looking at page 1 here, you have your breakdowns of your different expenditures by operations and maintenances. You'll be looking predominantly at column E and F. As you come down, it shows the current budget and then the recommended budget for 2021, recommended budget being the preliminary numbers that were put in. If you look down about halfway on line 24, you're going to see that this last year, our expenditures were 32,000. We're looking at 33 and change right now. I'm sorry, 32 million. I'm looking at 33 million this year. And then we have projections of lost revenues. So bringing that down on how it impacts the proposed revenue, you'll see the 8.8 million line and the 9.9 million line once we've accounted for the revenues. So this is kind of what the levy is. And we take the debt out of that because that's not, our debt levy limit is different from our operation levy limit. Taking out libraries and bridges arrives us at the numbers of the 6,371,000 for last year and the 7,136,000. Our goal in the preliminary budget was to arrive at a 0% levy increase for operational purposes. So that's kind of where we arrived at the number of 765,000 to try to close. Does that make sense to you, Mr. Chair?
Page 1 is great. Yeah, keep going.
Going and then on to page 2, it starts getting the breakdown then for the numbers that you saw off of page 1 on the top for expenditures and operations, and it has it broken down by general government on line 9, public safety on page 10, etc. This is the detail breakdown then for those numbers that you saw on that front page of the summary. You'll see general government all on page 1, going into public safety, etc. on to page 2, and on it goes on expenditures until you arrive at revenues starting on, well, there's 5 pages of expenditures and then you're at your revenues for those same types.
It's like page 8 of 14, following the PDF.
Thank you. And then on the last page, you'll see then that Clerk Vlasic has provided then the debt schedule. Shows the breakdown of the principal retired and the outstanding debt for the close of the year.
Okay, so committee member questions or comments? Anyone else in the room? Supervisors or other elected officials? Staff? Supervisor C.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Landry, at our last financial meeting, you mentioned the possibility of a freeze in compensation. That incorporated in these figures today.
I don't recall mention of freeze in compensations.
Perhaps he is wrong.
Yeah, I know we talked about the projection of trying to do an incremental wage increase to keep up, as we had said by resolution, would be a challenge. And the estimated challenge of that is 242,000 for all departments. So that is still on here as a goal as we go into it. But trying to meet that goal will add to the challenge. I intend to bring it to you folks as this is my proposed. If we're trying to meet these other types of goals, then these other types of reductions will have to happen in these other areas. Present that as options beyond the proposal that I would bring.
Thank you.
That's Supervisor Carroll, if you want to come up here.
Under revenues for intergovernmental revenues, have we received guidance on those numbers, or was it just plugs from last year?
Supervisor Carroll, which page are you on?
Page 1 of revenues.
Okay, so that'd be page 8 of 14 in the PDF. Like, and you're under row 15, intergovernmental revenues.
Correct.
There's several things underneath there. And your question again was, have you received guidance from the state on what they're doing?
That's correct.
Okay, Commissioner Lambert.
Our estimates, I believe, we've taken mostly from last year. Is that correct, Clerk Colossi? Julie, what we're working with right now?
Correct, this is historic.
Did that answer, Steve, what you're after?
One question I had was about, what page is that on? So somewhere in here we had interest. That's under revenues. It may have been on page 8 of 14 again. I was looking through this morning and I noticed that we had projected interest to be on row 10, interest on taxes. Column F, the recommended budget for 2021 was $100,000, but we know that's going to be increasing quite a bit. So I guess will staff be updating this with a projection from Treasurer Keller?
Yes, certainly as we approach the year, the variables and our revenues will change as we get a clearer picture. Obviously, some of it is still going to be a best guess or a responsible guess is probably the right language to use.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions or comments? Supervisor Seat. It's off. You need to hit it once and then start talking. There's a little bit of a delay, so just start talking.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Langford, with regard to anticipated revenue from the state, you said that you used last year's numbers. Do you have any information that would indicate increase in revenue from the state or a decrease?
Do not have those projections. Wisconsin Counties Association is certainly tracking on it though, and they're trying to get a feel through Madison. They have weekly updates on Madison on Mondays that I tune into. A question was posed yesterday, and the best response we have from our association is that it's not on the docket right now, but obviously they're working on a biannual budget type of a process, so that becomes a future solution to them. That's a possibility. It's always a possibility that they could cut our profit sharing, but as of right now, it's not been a rumor or a whisper in Madison to the best of
Mr. Chairman, there's been some discussion federally about stimulus money being available to states and municipalities. Does anyone know anything concrete about that information?
Don't have anything concrete. I've got some loose sand, gravelly mix, though, that the National Counties Association is trying to lobby federally to have more language that designates it specifically down to counties and I believe municipalities. Try to get it to local government versus through like the CARES Act that came trickled down through the state. That the state kind of set the parameters for our reimbursement for that federal money.
I like your use of the word gravelly mix in conjunction with concrete.
Sure. And then some of that also, I think, included they were looking to get language, I believe, for lost revenues, for a percentage of it that you could apply towards lost revenues. It's not fully materialized to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a motion on the table here or not on the table yet, but presented before us to continue with the approved budget process and present an updated budget on September 1st at our next meeting. Entertain a motion. Motion by Supervisor Seat. Second. By Supervisor Cooney. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Agenda item number 27 rather, future agenda items proposals. I'll start with Supervisor Brewer. Do you have any future agenda items that you'd like us to consider for finance and personnel?
Yes, I do, and it would be considering the probation status of the county administrator.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Supervisor Brewer?
No.
Okay, Supervisor C. Not at this time. Okay, I heard you. And then Supervisor Gentis?
I'd like to have a paper copy of the proposed budget. Hard to follow on the iPad. And then I don't really like plaques. We never really did anything for several supervisors.
So that is going to be on the rules agenda. That last item about honoring folks, you had mentioned that last month, and that's headed on that agenda. And then if someone could get Supervisor Gentis a paper copy of the proposed budget for request there. And then Supervisor Cooley?
We're going to continue to work out here. We got to get this. I'm all for being out here, but we got to get this to work. Otherwise, I'm going to paper copy of everything also. This is not.
Okay, we'll work on that too. Okay, so with that, if anyone else has other items, if you could just be in touch with me anytime between now and the next meeting. We usually set the agenda 3 business days in advance, just to give you a heads up on that. And I also want to say thank you to all the staff for all the work it took to put together a 28-point agenda with all these materials. You guys did a great job, and thank all the committee members too for all the time you're putting into reviewing these and considering things. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, September 1st at 1 p.m. Location to be determined.
So moved.
Motion by Supervisor Brewer, second by Supervisor Cooley. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Good meeting, kid.